member of the United Nations Association in Oxford. My question really is, what do the panel believe to be the most significant policy that could be introduced within the next 2 to 3 years in Sri Lanka to progress reconciliation the most?
I'll ask the governor perhaps. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Immediately after the end of the conflict, there was an agreement that was reached between the United Nations and the Sri Lankan government. Actually, 1 week afterwards, where there were 8 points were mentioned, which went on to say about the development of the North, release of the ex-combatants, release of child soldiers, the livelihood development, the demining. There were so many 8 components of that nature. And every single one of those had been done now. Restoration of, in fact, even the electoral rights as well as elections. Now what we see is an important phase where the benefits of what we have done so far need to be known outside. I think the Sri Lankan government, one area that they didn't do very well was to talk about it. There was a huge amount of investment, actually $3 billion. We only borrowed $2 billion from the IMF. But we invested $3 billion in the northern province to restore the facilities, to get the roads done up, to get the hospitals to be functioning again, to get the electricity restored, and all that. Now that message hasn't really gone to the rest of the world. So I think there is a duty on the part of the Sri Lankan government, and I know Chris Nonis and his team, as well as any of us, when we go around also we mention this, because we think it's important for people to realize that this has happened. Anyone, when they go back to Sri Lanka and they look at what's taking place, they can see that all these things are in place. Now this message has to go across to the rest of the world that Sri Lankans are actually enjoying a universally acceptable standard of living as well as unity. There's no skirmish there. We haven't had a single bomb going back out there in Sri Lanka. Every skirmish in the world, if you see, there have been aftermath where killings have taken place even after liberation has taken place. Not so in Sri Lanka. We haven't had a single bomb going back, and that is because 12,000 ex-combatants who were guilty of various crimes were pardoned, amnestied, and sent back to society and given livelihood. So that is now presently in force. And I believe in time to come, I believe very, very sincerely that Sri Lanka would be shown up as a role model for others to follow in the aftermath of conflicts. So we are satisfied that we have done all what we need to do, and we put our money where our mouth is. We have invested, and we are actually telling people, come and see. In the Pali language, in Sanskrit, there is a stanza which says, Ehi Passiko, come see. Ehi means come, Passiko means see. Come see in Sri Lanka, and then you will know that the reconciliation is taking place, and we need the understanding of the global community that this is taking shape. Sometimes what happens in Sri Lanka is that we hear the other sides of people saying various things because the people who really matter haven't seen exactly what's taking place. So we are open, we are transparent, we like people to come and see. We can show off what we have done when we are very proud of that, and hopefully in time to come those conditions will be understood by many people, and Sri Lanka would be hailed as a case study, and we are looking forward to seeing that done. Thank you.
So, nothing else you feel that needs to be probably addressed in the next 2 years to overcome one or two things?
Yes, I think we also need to engage closely. That's perhaps one area that we haven't done well enough. We need to engage closely. We need to talk to people and say what we have done. We also we have to say what we did during the last stages of the war, because we have got expert advice. We have seen through the conditions that have taken place, and we are satisfied that all the principles of engagement in wars have been followed diligently by the Sri Lankan forces. Those of collateral damage, those of proportionality, those of distinction. These are all important facets of law which is prevalent worldwide in relation to the engagements of war as well as conflict, which we have followed diligently. And again, I say, what we have not done right is to talk about it and explain it. So now we are doing that, and we are happy that we are doing that now. And by doing so consistently, over a period of time, I'm sure the message will get across about Sri Lanka's commitment to human rights, to international humanitarian law, and the fact that we are deeply concerned about reconciliation. Who else but we would be more concerned about reconciliation when we have gone through 30 years of war? Who else will be eager than us, more eager than us to do that? Because we don't want to go back to that. I'm 60 years old. 30 years of my life we spent with a war. We don't want that to be the legacy that we are leaving for our children. So we want to see that this is dealt with. And we also know that reconciliation is so important, because if you do that right, the next generations will live better than what we had. So that's the key, that people from outside must also understand that there's no person who is more concerned about peace and reconciliation in Sri Lanka than ourselves. And we know how to do that, and we will do that.